Are you new to investing? Wondering whether or not you can self-manage your properties? Let us tell you about our partner, RentRedi. RentRedi is an awesome property management software that can help you grow and handle every aspect of your real estate investing business. Rent collection, tenant screening, maintenance, lease signing, listing. Honestly, RentRedi has everything.
One of the best features is their new tenant software, Latchel, where you're able to remove yourself as the landlord from being the middleman between tenants and maintenance calls. And it's also essentially a fraction of the cost of what you would pay for property management.
Let me also mention that RentRedi is unlimited. All their plans are flat price. This means you can keep adding properties to your portfolio without having to pay more. You can close on all the properties you want, and RentRedi's price stays the same. Best part about it is for you guys is they've given us an amazing deal to pass on to all Weekly Juice listeners. You can get 50% off any RentRedi plan at rentredi.com when you use our code JuicePod. That's rentredi.com, rentredi.com with code JuicePod, JUICEPOD, and you'll get 50% off any plan. If this is your first time here, welcome. During our shows, we interview successful entrepreneurs and investors to spread knowledge, advice, and actionable tactics to help others in the pursuit of financial freedom. We discuss successes, failures, systems, motivations, experiences, and key lessons learned along the way in the hopes that these stories help you along your journey. Tune in every Wednesday to get your weekly juice. If you've been here before and like what you've been hearing, please subscribe, share with friends, rate, and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That goes an extremely long way for us. It's simple. Just click on your podcast app, type in our podcast name, The Weekly Juice, click on the reviews, and let us know what you think. The more ratings we get, the more eyes we'll get on our show, and in turn, we'll be able to provide you all with high-quality guests. You can also find us on Instagram at Weekly Juice Pod for daily content and personal finance tips to assist in your journey towards financial freedom. Welcome back to the Weekly Juice, where we talk real estate, entrepreneurship, and financial independence. As always, Ryan and Corey here with another episode for you. Today, we had on special guest Tyler Wright. He is a 27-year-old millionaire that talks about a bunch of different investing options that he took at a young age to get himself to financial freedom before most.
Yeah, he started out, actually still has the job. He does like recruiting and staffing, and he was able to amass a lot more money from his job than he needed to live. So he took that money and then deployed it into investments, stocks, real estate, and then, building an online community where he's now hiring out some tasks for himself. So he's generating a multitude of streams of revenue, and all started from just kind of a discipline of trying to make a high earning from a sales type job. And now he's a sales manager. He's done a really good job. So it's a really cool episode. He really gets into stocks, how he bought real estate, and also what he got paid. He uses this terminology saying he got paid $7,000 to purchase a property. You just listen for it because he talks about how he ended up pulling a lot of his money out.
Yeah, he teaches people on how to bridge the debt gap. And then once they, get to zero, essentially, how they can deploy their funds into certain investments. And not only that, but he has the community that Corey discussed online. He's amassed to a really decent following, and he teaches people how to attain financial independence through finance, stocks, and real estate. So no better than to learn from a millionaire himself. And
he did it.
Let's just bring in Tyler.
Let's do it.
Tyler, welcome officially to the Weekly Juice. We're thrilled to have you here. Corey and I have been following your journey for a while now, and we're just excited to have you on and share your story with our listeners.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, like I was telling you guys before, I love the podcast. It's definitely one of my favorites, if not my favorite. I like the wide range of guests that you bring on. And as a listener, obviously, I know what you guys are, your listeners are looking for. And so I hope that I can, bring them some value and help them get further along on their journey to financial freedom, with some of the stuff I have to share tonight.
Awesome. Well, if you could just give us a background on who you are, where you're from, and then how you reached financial independence by age 27.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, from the beginning, growing up, I would say I was a pretty, fairly normal kid, just played a bunch of sports, was pretty good in school. As far as my parents and stuff, they were good parents that came from a good home. I don't have necessarily a rags to riches type of situation, but my parents were in middle management. They kind of taught me how to save money, but I never really heard about stocks or real estate or really anything from my parents. And it's not like they were necessarily holding anything back from me. They just they were just kind of normal folks. So for me growing up, I kind of had this tendency to save, but I think what really, differentiated me growing up was I always had this incessant need for some reason to try to be the best, try to do my best, try to be the best at whatever it is I was doing. Which is sometimes I wonder kind of why that was, because my parents, they weren't like the crazy, my mom was a little crazy, but every mom's crazy, I guess. But she wasn't like, hey, if you don't get straight A's, don't come home or anything crazy like that. So, but for me, I legitimately, no joke, got like a 98 or a 99 or 100, probably in every class from the time I was in second grade to when I graduated high school. So, and I don't know why that is. There's absolutely no reason why anyone probably on earth needs grades like that. But it was more of like a internal motivation to just reach my potential more so than it was like trying to get a good grade. So that kind of stuck with me in sports. It stuck with me as a result, the biggest thing that did for me, or one of them, was it got me into college at a 4-year state university here in Florida, on a full ride. So for academics, I played golf and wrestled and played baseball in high school. It wasn't good enough for, I could have maybe gone like D3 in golf, but I was like, I want to go to like a big school and, go with my friends and stuff like that. But, it was my grades that allowed me to go there and go there essentially for free, so I worked some jobs in college and whatnot. And I had that scholarship, and, basically that allowed me to graduate from school debt free, which, is really the biggest thing. Is at some point you got to get to zero, right? You got to get back to like, I know a lot of, kids, are a lot of people I talk to on a daily basis still, they don't even really understand loans or debt or, student loans. Some of them legitimately think that it's just free money. It's like a grant, which some are, but most of them aren't. So some people are like, oh, wait, I have to like pay this back. Like, what's an interest rate? All this kind of stuff, which, sometimes student loans are good. Sometimes they're not. There's a lot of subjectiveness to that, and there's a lot of factors it depends on. But for me, I was able to graduate, debt free, which for me, started me off on a solid foundation. And then as I was kind of telling you guys a little bit before the show, I got into, something that I didn't think was, something I was going to do. I thought I was going to go, and I graduated with a degree in finance. So I thought I was going to maybe go into, investment banking or financial advising or something like that. And I actually met one of my best friends. His older brother was at a career fair in college, and he had just started working at this company like 3 days prior. So he was the guy they sent out to the career fair, and he was in staffing. Like recruiting, staffing, that kind of thing. And so I just started talking to him because I know the guy. He's a few years older than me. And I was like, all right, well, what is this? What is staffing? What is recruiting? He told me a little bit about it. I still had a semester left. I needed an internship. He told me to come by, and, from there, everything, really just started kind of clicking for me. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I got to become financially independent, because it wasn't like I just started off, as an entrepreneur, like I'm going to, make this product, or I'm going to drop ship, or I'm going to resell products or whatever. And all that stuff's cool. That just wasn't my journey. Mine was focusing on my 9 to 5. Cause at that point, I don't know. I think when I tell a story, people think like, oh, well, you must've just, come out of the womb knowing about real estate or stocks or, business or this or that. Like I didn't know anything. Like when I graduated college, I had a finance degree, but I mean like, that I consider that to be like 2% of the finance that I know now, even though it's college level 4-year finance, because it's all just book stuff. It doesn't really, it's not the application of it. So for me, my big thing was, all right, I have a job, and it was largely commission based. When I started out, I was making $30,000. That was my starting salary when I came out of college. No, and zero, like, hey, we'll pay you 50 until you get up to this commissioner. It was $30,000. I didn't need my college degree to do the job. I probably didn't need my high school degree to do the job. But I saw it as potential because I didn't know if I was doing this at the time, but it allowed me an opportunity to invest in the greatest thing you can invest in, which is yourself, right? The best bet you can make is on yourself if you truly believe in what you're doing. So for me, as I was saying, somebody that gets, A pluses, somebody gets an academic scholarship, somebody that's always played sports and worked hard and always tried to be the best. And a job like sales or commission based or something where you get paid based on your performance was the biggest blessing that I could have ever had, because I was going to work like that regardless. Whether you paid me $50,000 salary based on, how good or bad I didn't do, like a salary job, I was going to show up and I was going to give you maximum effort. So for me, I was lucky to come into something like that allowed me to grow my income. So I did all the other personal finance stuff. I kept my expenses low. I didn't have a housing payment. I wish I could tell you that I house hacked, but I didn't know about it at the time. But I was essentially an RA because I was in a fraternity in college, and I was president in college and president of the fraternity, and gave a lot back to the fraternity. There was a position to be a resident advisor, which I would probably never recommend to anyone. But for me, I didn't pay rent for my first 2 years out of college because I also had to live in a fraternity house while I was trying to work a 9-to-5 job. But, for me, it was like, hey, I didn't have to pay utilities. I didn't have to pay, like anything, the cable, rent, anything. Like I had no expenses. I had a car, an old car that was paid off that I had for a long time. So for me, I was just building up my commission, doing all the stuff that you hear people, doing to be successful, showing up early, working hard, finding the people at your job that are doing what you want to do and go find out what they're doing differently than everyone else, getting a mentor like that and just busting your ass, like day in, day out, every single day. And that allowed me to really grow my income very, very fast. And then, so the next thing for me is like, all right, well, what do I do? What do I do with this money? So, because I know I don't need it in a savings account. And so for me, it became the stock market, because I feel like that is, probably, it's not necessarily the easiest way, because now I know so much about real estate that I feel like, real estate could be the first answer for you, depending on some life factors. But for me, the stock market was like the simplest, not that it's simple, but it's the easiest way to get started. Like you can literally go buy, read one book, on index funds, invest your money in index funds. And that actually might need to be all you need to do forever, depending on, what you want to do with your, investments and, how you want to diversify and that kind of stuff. So for me, it was like, hey, I'm dumping all my money, that I can really into the stock market. Of course I had like emergency fund and all that kind of stuff. But for me, it was, I at that time was like, hey, I didn't do just all index funds. I also had, quite a few single stocks, which for me, the reason why I did that is because I was young. I knew my risk tolerance, understood what I was, doing. I didn't think that I was, Captain America and going to try to, beat the stock market or anything necessarily. But I was like, hey, I understand risk. I understand reward. I'm young. I have a real job. I don't need this money. And that doesn't mean I was just throwing it away at anything, but I invested heavily in Facebook, Amazon, Google, Apple, a lot of companies that did really, really well, and so some people go, oh, well, of course, like you invested in them, like you got lucky or whatever. It's like, but I always tell people luck is reserved for the players. You don't get to be lucky if you're not on the court. You don't get to make a lucky shot if you're on the bench, so, you have to take some sort of risk. And for me, that was what I felt was best for my own risk tolerance. And of course I've changed that, as time has gone on and my wealth has grown. But, and then for me, I started looking around and going, all right, well, the stocks are awesome, but how am I going to stop working? Right. How am I going to how is this actually going to happen where at some point I don't have to work anymore? And so obviously there's a lot of different ways, I'm probably going to oversimplify it, but with stocks, one thing people talk about is, the 4% rule, like where you just withdraw 4% of a massive amount of money, like 1 to 2 or $10 million, whatever it is, depending on what kind of fire you want to reach. But for me, I was always like, I felt like that's really going to take a really long amount of time to build up, 1 million or 2 million or 5 million or whatever. And like, all right, well, what if I get to retirement and I want to spend more, right? What if I want to make, what if I change or what if, inflation happens, or what if the stock market's performing terribly for 10 or 15 years, and there's probably answers to all those things. But for me, I was like, all right, let me look into some other things, see what I can do. And I'm still heavily invested in the stock market. It's probably 50% of my money. So by no means am I saying, hey, this isn't, like the stock market sucks or anything. Like I still believe in it. But that's where I was introduced into real estate.
Got it. It seems like you have your money in a lot of different places, but let's just like recap your story. So you're intrinsically motivated in life, right? I see you seem like a type A, right? You have the high grades, you played the sports, you wanted to be the best. Like I love how you connected you talked about just like that drive inside you and you connected it to your 9 to 5, because I think for me, I'm in sales as well. And commission's tied, I have salary, but it's also tied to commission. And for me, I truly believe that like I would not thrive in here's X amount of dollars and do tasks every single day. Like I would just be like, okay, I'm getting this money. I'll just kind of go on autopilot. But for my performance to be tracked based on how hard I grind or how much effort I put in, I absolutely love it. And it's the game like inside of me that I'm like, okay, I played sports my whole life too. And I'm super competitive. So I need that every day. And for me, I'm not looking at the clock. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I can buy myself X amount of dollars more if I do 5 more things differently than other people are doing. And right, you hitch up to the people that are good at it and you learn from them, they teach it to you. And now you and I are both teaching others that are coming after us, which is super cool. I love that. And then now, you mentioned you got into stocks, right? And then now a little bit into real estate too. And then you also came from zero debt, which is very like rare, I would say these days for some people, right? But even after you came from zero debt, graduating school, you didn't just jump into the workforce and like start pumping your money into like renting a place, right? Like you were an RA and also subsidized your I guess your housing again for 2 years, which allowed you to save even more. Then you hit it big on a couple like big stocks. I don't know exactly what you'd call them, but like you said, Facebook, I think Google, some of the big techies. And that helped in a way, right? But now you realized, and I think you paused yourself at one point and you were like, well, that many people won't take that route or won't hit it as quickly as I did in that. So they should turn the page to real estate. And I want to dive in there a little bit. I think you have 8 rentals or 8 units currently. Can you talk about like your love for real estate and like how that plays in effect to your portfolio and how someone maybe could get in themselves right out of school?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was alluding to there is like, so I wanted to figure out like, all right, with stocks, A, I wanted to diversify, B, this idea that stocks, you can invest in dividend stocks and they might pay you a 4% dividend. Anything higher than that, usually the company is not in good shape. Typically, and that might be oversimplifying it, but I just didn't see a really good way to retire from stocks without it taking potentially 10, 15, 20 years. So I got introduced to real estate just by, I don't even know. I think I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read a lot. I read probably a book a week. I listen to it on Audible, so I basically, it's like my 8 hours. I listen to it on like 2 times speed, like a crackhead, and get done with a book in a week, So, but I'm just, you don't know what options are out there until you learn about what options are out there, So a lot of people don't think that they have any hope, but they're not exposing themselves to options. So I exposed myself to real estate, and I think it was Rich Dad Poor Dad because it just opened me up to this idea that, hey, there's a way for you to make just as much money as you're making now or more and not work, and that's like, oversimplified, but and the way you do that well, the cool thing about real estate is this. First of all, there's appreciation. So the house, will go up in value about 3% per year, on average, whatever. This year was like 15, 20%, which is crazy. But, also you have a tenant in there that is paying down the loan, which the loan, I don't want to skip over that because that's the cool part too. I get to go to the bank and go, hey, I can only afford, a $10,000 house, but, they'll give you a $200,000 house for that $10,000 if you're living in it. That's 5%, plus closing costs, whatever. So you can use an extreme amount of leverage. So the example that I tell people all the time is, so a $200,000 house, 3% in value or in appreciation. That's just one part. That's $6,000 it goes up, right? 3% of 200,000. So but that's not a 3% gain. That's 6,000, but you only put in 10,000. That's a 60% gain. That's a 60% return just from appreciation. That's the worst part. So like if I can start off by saying that's the worst part, then obviously, things are getting better. It's something to look into. So also on top of that, the tenant is paying down your loan. The tenant is paying all expenses to the property. I pay a property manager because I don't want to be a landlord. And I work that into my cost. I work that into my deal. And it's property manager is I feel like I'm robbing somebody. It's 8%. I pay this guy to do 98% of the work on a monthly basis. It's robbery, as long as you find the deal and you work it in there, then it can make sense. Right. If you want to be a landlord, be a landlord. Personally, that's my decision that I don't want to. But, and on top of that, there's tons of tax advantages. So a lot of the money you're making, you're not even paying taxes on, and then on top of that, there's cash flow, there's income coming in. And that's the biggest difference where I was like, all right, this is why I can retire with real estate, because there's monthly profit cash flow that comes in at the end of the month that I can take. Right now, I don't need it because I work my job, but I could quit right now because I have, $3,500, $4,000 typically a month profit after everything. That and my expenses are probably that much, and I've got.
Let's talk about that portfolio that you've built, because the loan pay down, the tax benefits, appreciation, cash flow. Yeah, I think you've framed it perfectly for people. These are all the amazing benefits. I'm curious about how you specifically started your path in real estate. Like, what were some actions that you took at the beginning to start to build this portfolio? Where did you look? Because it's one thing to understand it and to read about it and to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but another thing to dive in and actually dive into a specific market. Were you buying long distance? Just dive in a little bit about how you started to build your portfolio.
Yeah. So I actually bought in my local market, and I tell people there's always going to be a strategy. So like, just because I use a strategy doesn't mean there's not 50 million other strategies. But for me, I had worked that job. I had made a lot of money. I had no expenses. I invested all that money. It made money through the stock market. So I was sitting there and I had a little bit over $100,000 where I was like, I had more than that, but I was like, I'm going to liquidate some of this and go put it in real estate. So I was able to buy a property. It was a 3-unit property, a triplex. It was already rented out. It was $145,000, I think is what I ended up paying for it. I paid for it in cash. No, you don't need to pay cash to good deal in real estate. But for me, it made sense on that one because A, I had the money, and B, the guy wanted a cash deal, and that put me in a better situation than some of the other offers that were out there. So I bought this triplex for $145,000. Typically, like oversimplifying it, you'd want to see, maybe even a little bit more than this, but if the house is $145,000, then you'd want to see $1,400 coming in rent. That's like the 1% rule that some people use. So this house was bringing in closer to $2,500 to $2,600 in rent. It was like just under $900 per unit. So it was an absolute slam dunk from a cash flow basis.
Almost 2% rule.
Yeah, it was absolute slam dunk. And there was no renovations that really needed to be done. The guy was in a situation where he was trying to go buy something else. I forget what it was, and he was a landlord. He didn't want to be a landlord anymore. So it was kind of a perfect storm where he wanted to get out. I came in with a cash offer. He probably should have sold it for higher. I thought it was probably worth like 160, 170. I got it for 145. So what did I do? Well, I did a BRRRR, but without one of the R's, which is like ideal. And you can't always do this, but on this one, and to answer your point, I found it on the MLS. Like I found it like, broad daylight. I made an offer within 30 seconds of seeing the place, because before that I had ran the numbers on so many deals, which is the education part of it before you jump in, that I knew just from seeing like 3 numbers on the listing that it was an absolute slam dunk, unless there's like a dead body in the attic or something, and I was like, I won't find that out till later.
You can clean that out.
Right. Exactly. So, as long as it's not a ghost, I guess. But so for me, I was like, I need to make an offer on this now. I made an offer without seeing it. And there's a due diligence process. So you can, check to make sure there's nothing really wrong with it or whatever. But I made that offer. Everything went well. Like there was nothing really that needed to be renovated on it. And then 4 months later, this is probably about 3 or 4 months later, I went to the bank. I didn't have to renovate it. I didn't spend $1 on the place. It was already rented out. And so I bought it for $145 cash, and I got an appraisal done at the bank. I refinanced the house. So I can go to the bank, and the bank can say, well, it's actually worth this amount of money. So I'll tell you what, we'll give you a loan on it, just like a mortgage. Typically when you refinance, you already have a mortgage, but for this one, I owned the whole thing because I paid cash for it. So I opened up a first lien or a first mortgage on it. And they appraised the value of that house without me having to do anything for $190,000. So it went from 145 to 190. So I literally in that moment made $45,000. Like, any way you want to look at it, it's in my net worth, So what I did is they said, all right, it's worth $190,000. They said, we'll give you 80% of that back in a loan, which came out to about $152,000. So if you're with me, I bought a house for $145,000. It was bringing me about $2,600, $2,700 probably now in rent a month. Paid $145, and I got back out $152. Like essentially, you might not look at it this way, but this is how I look at it. I got paid $7,000 to buy that property because I'm not paying off the loan. The tenants are paying off the loan. They're paying off the interest. They're paying off the principal. It's cash flowing. So I paid $145, got out $152, took that $152, and went and bought another one. So this is a really, really cool story. And it sounds like that you're doing it probably sounds like to our listeners that you're doing extremely savvy things with your money. You're talking about investing in the stock market. You're talking about, buying rental properties, and it's all because of the money that you made at your W-2. I want to back up a little bit. I think we might've got ahead of ourselves with it. I just want to talk about like your framework. It's one thing to be good in school and your grades and everything, but like what was sparked for you that told you to say that, like, I'm not just going to keep making this money in my W-2 and putting it away in a savings account. Like, what about the investing and then maybe specifically real estate was like driving you to do this? Because there's a light bulb that goes on for people about financial independence. It went on at some point for you. Can you talk about that moment? And then we can get into more of the stocks and the real estate and the specifics to it. Yeah, I think like it was kind of, I think I glanced over it, but with like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, stuff like that, like I had never like known about that idea that you basically don't have to work if you invest correctly and work hard, right? Like you have to put in work on the front end. But another thing with my job, since it's commission based and I staff people, right? So those people are working 24 hours a day. Yeah, and I don't work 24 hours a day, but I'm essentially making a cut of every dollar that they make. So like I kind of got hip to the idea, but even before I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I'm like, what if there's a way for me to like make money like I am and work less hours than these people are, which ended up being those people, those employees ended up being my money. We're looking at my money like that. Like, how can I make my money go work for me while I'm not? And then you kind of just, you work hard, you educate yourself. A lot of it, like I said, is exposing yourself to these ideas, exposing yourself to people that have done exactly what you want to do. And then I can go, well, that guy's not that special. Right. And that doesn't take anything away from anybody, because I'll be the first one to tell you that I'm not special. Right. Like when people, oh yeah, how'd you do this? How you do that? It's like, look, I'm not special. I'm a person. I worked hard. Literally, you can do it too. So when I started seeing people that, were just, they put on their shoes the same way, put on their shirts the same way, put on the underwear the same way, same everything that I do, and that they are living a life where they don't have to work and they're financially free through these investments. I'm like, well, if they can do it, then I can. And that's probably the strongest belief that you can ever have to set you on the track that you need to be on. Is you need to understand that no one is special, right? You can respect people and you should respect people, and respect what they've accomplished. But the minute that you believe that somebody's able to do something that you're not, then you sowed your fate. Whether you think you're right or you think you're wrong, you're right.
Right. Exactly.
I really like that. Like, I think about that all the time, and I forget who I was telling this to, but like, I always picture myself like walking around. I always just want to know, like, I wish like a speech bubble would pop up above someone's head and just show me their net worth. And because you'd be so shocked of the way someone looks, right? It's so easy to judge a book by its cover. And some people you would never know, just millionaires, like silent millionaires, or like they have their stuff together. And it's just super cool, like going and doing all these interviews and meeting people like you who just have incredible stories. And the real fact of it is, like, none of us, we're special in our own way. We're unique. Every person is unique, right? Not taking that away, but like, you're not doing anything out of this world that isn't attainable that someone else can't do. I guess that's what you mean by that.
I think somebody said this. I think it was Brandon Turner who I heard it from, but it's not him who originally said it, is that nothing is hard. It's just undefined steps that you haven't taken yet. Even rocket science, it's like it's a series of 250 or 500 or 1,000 step by step by step by step. So it seems hard to us, but it's only because we don't know the steps yet. So that's like kind of part of this, is to say that all these other people that are doing this, once you immerse yourself in the communities, I think for us, that's when it was like, oh, wow, there's all these other people. There's Tyler, there's Steve Rosenberg, there's Stealthy Rich, like these people that we started to talk to, and like, they're all doing it, and no knock against any of these people, but it's like, you kind of see yourself on the same wavelength. So then you start to mimic, right? Nothing is original. You start to mimic. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but No,
that's perfect, because everyone that we have interviewed does something different, right? Like we talked, Steve Rosenberg is an airline pilot. Stealthy Rich, I think he was like involved with the church back in the day, like just some like,
I think they do tech in tech, 9 to 5 in tech, I think, but yeah,
it's just so many different walks of life. And then they, you all meet together in this one financial independence community, and you hear their stories, and it's like, people that just latch onto each other and learn from people that have done it well or great. It's like, you can do it too. And I guess that's like part of our motivation here, is just like to share these stories so that people can see there's no secret to hard work. It's just hard work and self-education. I want to go to one thing, Tyler, that you posted the other day. And it was like a snapshot of your last year, 2020. Right. And I have it all listed out here, but you already know what it is. But I want to touch on a few different things of like, you read 40 books in a year. You did you took 10 courses. You moved your net worth from 700,000 to 1.05 million. You sold the most you ever did. You have 8 rental units. Like, you just had a year, right? But like, it didn't all happen in 2020. It was all the time you took to put in ahead of time. Like, when you come home from your 9 to 5, you're not going to bed, you're grinding, you're waking up early, you're grinding, and you're always learning. You said you just told us a minute ago, you read just about a book a week, and you do it on double speed. People don't do that. Like, you're one of the 10% of people that actually will take what they've listened to, like in a podcast, in a book, and just go implement it. And like, I've learned so far that many of the entrepreneurs that turn millionaires or turn financially free, they're just doers. Like, that's really what it comes down to.
Yep. And they don't talk a lot about it too, until people ask them, until they don't have to introduce themselves. So let's go back to your story, and let's talk about you making all this money. You decided to dive into stocks. And I didn't mean making all this money as in like you're making millions of dollars, right? You have a good job and you're making money. You have extra money, and you're dumping it into stocks, and you're dumping it into real estate. Can you talk about some of the first moves you make? Like, if you're speaking to our audience members who have 20, 30, 40, $50,000, and maybe it continues to grow, but it's sitting in a savings account. What do you recommend to these people? Do you put $500 a month in stock? Do you save up $20,000 and go buy an investment property? It doesn't have to be the way you did it, but maybe kind of looking back, what's your steps that you take?
Yeah. And, obviously it's a lot of that's like subjective as to where you live and stuff, but also I think it's like trying to find something that A, you understand, and then B, that you go out and understand it right before you dump in it. But
sure.
The biggest thing I probably would have done, which I did, but not like in this way, like, cause I kind of house hacked, but like not really. I was an RA, but same thing. But obviously I was missing a lot of the benefits. I mean, I think one of the things that if I was a kid my age, I would gone and house hacked. I would have bought a investment property that's either 3 or 4 units or a single family home. Save up that, like you said. I mean, you said 50 or 60,000. I mean, that's way, 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 way more than enough. Obviously you got to make sure the numbers work and everything, but there is a situation out there in a lot of markets, or crazy thing, you can move to a new market, especially now where the majority of people don't even need to work in their office. You live pretty much wherever you want. But there's a situation where you could buy a 3 or 4 unit house or a 3 or 4 bedroom house, and essentially the idea oversimplified is renting out the other rooms for the same price as the mortgage, plus expenses and all that kind of stuff, to where you literally either even out. Some situations you might even have a cash flow. Some situations maybe you're paying $200 or $300 a month. But the deal is a lot of kids, a lot of people come out of college and they're spending $500 or $1,000 or $1,500 or $2,000 and go live in a downtown apartment or whatever. And I'm like, hey, if you would just took that money and just bought a house, all the things we were talking about, I mean, it would have appreciated. you would have paid no rent. Now you could take that $1,500 a month. Like people are like, oh, where do I get money to invest? Boom, right there. That's way more than technically you probably ever need. Obviously, if it depends on what your goals are, but $1,500 a month is enough to get anybody as rich as they ever want to be.
And Tyler, what's really interesting about this house hacking strategy that you're kind of explaining to people is that the gap between these people when you're in your early 20s, maybe 20, 24, 25, even 28, 29, you don't feel it. Like you don't feel people are in the downtown apartments and they're doing their thing. And we're talking about this perception of your life. Like it looks like they're living the life. And then I'm telling you at 5 years, 8 years, 10 years into this process, it starts to shift. And you're saying all this time that you spent investing, and it takes time, right? It's not going to happen in 3 years, but it could happen in 10 to 15. So you have this massive shift and then your life kind of gets elevated. So I love that. I think house hacking is the best way to start. What did you do? Did you invest money monthly into stocks to start out, to grow this like portfolio over the last 7 or 8 years or so?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, from the beginning, for me, it was clearing debt, which I didn't necessarily have to, but that's because I earned the right to do that. But do you necessarily need to clear debt? Not necessarily. It depends on kind of personal preference and what the debt is. But for me, it was focusing on, like I said, I mean, I hate to come back to it, but focusing on a job where you can make income that you can control. That was undoubtedly, I mean, like if I was making $50,000 a year, like, which is the median salary. So for a kid coming out of college, it's probably way more than they're making on average, depending on where you live. I wouldn't be on this podcast, and then that's just the truth of it. The only reason why I'm on this podcast really from the beginning was that I focused on finding a job to where and you can do this in a number of different ways. You can try to get a higher degree to do something that is a higher salary. You can try to do a side business. You can be an entrepreneur. You can, find something that's like commission based. Or if you want to work your own job, that's fine too. But you've got to realize the impact of your decisions, and it's just going to mean that you're probably going to get there a little bit later. So what is your goal? Like if your goal is, hey, I want to be financially free as soon as possible, then we got to go down this path. Like, if it's like, hey, I enjoy my job, I want to work till I'm 45 or 50 or whatever, then that's fine. I always tell people there's no right or wrong decisions. There's only educated and non-educated, and there's aligned and non-aligned. So it's like you can make an educated decision, which, might be investing in the stock market or might be investing in real estate. But let's say that doesn't align with your life, then it's a bad decision. It doesn't matter if it's an educated one, because if it's not going to align with your life and your goals and your risk tolerance and all that kind of stuff, then it's not a good decision. So for me, it was focus on that income. I lower my expenses, all the personal finance type of stuff. Right. And then for me, it was investing in the stock market. And yeah, it was a diversified portfolio of a lot of things that I liked and index funds on a consistent monthly basis, and just letting that grow, and I was going to leave that in there regardless of whether or not the market took off or not. But, that was around 2015, so, I'm sure you guys have seen a chart since 2015, it
looks pretty good.
It looks pretty good.
So was it, you mentioned index funds and then stocks. So I'm guessing you opened up a taxable brokerage account, right? So like when you pulled this, I'm thinking about, you have amassed about like 500,000 in there. And then at one point you took out $100,000, you liquidated it, right? Did you have to pay taxes on that? Or was it like a Roth IRA where you already had invested the $100,000 and like, you're just keeping I guess not the dividends, but the earnings for down the line, and you took out your original $100,000? Like, how did that work?
Yeah. So for me, I guess this is kind of where I differ a little bit. And again, there's not a right or wrong. It depends on whether or not it's aligned. And so for me, my alignment, I invest in, Roth IRA and 401k, but it's nowhere near what my taxable brokerage is, because for me, I knew that 100% I'm retiring. Like even before I knew about real estate and all this other stuff that ended up coming to fruition, I knew that there's not a chance in hell that I'm working until I'm 65 or 55 or 45. It's just not happening. So for me, I was like, hey, which, could I have done the other way, or could I have, taken out a loan against my 401k, or could I have, use a self-directed IRA or something like that, like maybe. But for me at the time, I was like, hey, I need to be able to use this money. I don't know for what yet, but I need to have access to it. So, I had to pay, some taxes on some of the stuff that I liquidated that wasn't, contributions, like some of the gains and whatnot. But, compared to what it allowed me to go do, like I said, was, it was beans compared to what I took in.
So it wasn't out of the 401k, right? It was out of a retirement account.
No,
it was out of a tax.
It was out of a brokerage. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. That makes sense. Well, it seems like you've done a lot of different things, and I'm trying to like just piece together your pie here, right? So right now you got about, and correct me if I'm wrong, about like 500K in the stock market. Then you have 8 rental units that bring in X amount. And then you have your high income job, right? So Corey alluded to it a little bit, but like, do you siphon off, like, can you break down like what you siphon off and like, hey, this amount's going to go into real estate, this amount's going to go into stocks, and just give people like the system that you chug along with? And it could vary, right? It might not be the same, but it would just be interesting to see like a day in the life.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely has changed a lot over time. Because like I said, in the beginning, it was literally just like all my money into the stock market, right? I wasn't really like doing a lot of like picking and stuff. It was mostly like an automated investment. And then over time it became, all right, now I'm going to throw some into real estate. But for the most part, the only money that I used for real estate was the money that came in from real estate. So like, I kind of just keep it like going back and, it's like reinvesting dividends in a sense, like to go buy more properties and whatnot and stuff like that. So, and then now, obviously I have my account, my social media account, which is a business. I've, started to build, courses. I just built a course on real estate. So I'm looking to, build that. So now it's like, I've got money coming in from like stocks, stuff like that. So all that is pretty much reinvested back into stocks and dividends. I've got money coming in from real estate. All that money is pretty much reinvested back into more real estate. And then I've got money coming in from my business, and all that money is pretty much invested back into the business to help the business grow and scale and stuff like that. And then I've got my W-2, which is, like I said, it's the hack of all hacks. I mean, it's way north of $10,000 a month. Like, let's just say it like that, and that I don't need, so, I can take that and I'm pretty manual with it. Like it really depends on the month and what's going on. Like obviously when COVID hit, April, May, June, I was like stock market, like it was a no brainer, so depending on like, hey, if I'm trying to buy a new property and I need renovations or whatever, then I might use it there. Right. Or if I'm starting up the business, then maybe I'll use it there. So that's kind of like my flow money to where I can kind of, at one point I was like, hey, I want to build up my crypto a little bit, right? Like, 4 or 5% of my net worth I want like in here for now until, until this becomes more of a thing or whatever. I learn more about it. So for me, that W-2 is kind of just like, I'm able to use it where I want, depending on what's going on, if that makes sense.
Got it. That's good that you kind of painted that for us. So your whole pie, so to speak. Let's talk about your real estate investment strategy, like your current portfolio. We talked about you have 8 units. What are you looking for in properties? What strikes a good deal to you? Maybe how you're finding them. And you told us about this, incredible deal that you essentially got paid $7,000 to purchase. I'm assuming they all didn't work out like that, right? Unless they did, and we're going to move to Orlando. But where are you buying them? What's your strategy? Can you give us some of those details?
So my strategy from the beginning was always like multifamily, just because I felt like, there's just a lot of advantages. Like I said, if that was a $145,000 single family home, likely it just would not have rented for that much. The more you can break it up, the more you're charging, typically more revenue you're going to bring in per month. Like I said, I was making almost double of what a single family home at the similar price would probably be. So the first thing is multifamily. Plus, if it goes vacant, then you've got 2 other units. Like even if it went vacant, I would still be cash flowing. And I have a property manager, so they deal with all that stuff and I have to find tenants, et cetera. But for me, it was trying to find a deal. I learned about the BRRRR strategy, which, to kind of make it simple, you buy a property, usually a multifamily, it doesn't have to be, but you want to buy it for way under what it's worth, right? If possible. Then you want to rent it out. well, first you rehab, which I skipped that rehab, which I told you guys about earlier. So you may have to rehab it. You're buying something. How do you buy something way under value? Well, there's got to be something wrong with it, or there's got to be something that they like a really motivated seller for some reason. Could be divorce, could be they had it forever, could be they don't want to be a landlord, could be whatever it might be, right? And there's wholesalers in every market in America that are going out and finding these motivated sellers and typically bringing deals to the open market. So I'm trying to find deals like that maybe they need some TLC, or maybe there's something wrong with it, or maybe there's something I can go in and kind of fix. And like I said, on that first one, I basically put in all my money and I got all my money back out. And then I went and bought a quadplex, a fourplex. I bought that for like 178 or so. And so basically that first property almost paid for that second one. And then I actually refinanced my primary home, which is sneakily my 8th unit right now. So I have a triplex, a quadplex, and a primary home. And then I'll tell you guys what I'm getting ready to do next. But that quadplex was a little bit different. I had to do that rehab step. So it was buy undervalue because there was a lot wrong with it. It was a full gut rehab. I spent, like tens of thousands of dollars on the rehab on that property, which is typically what you have to do unless you buy it way, way, way undervalue. Then you rent it out, which is my property manager renting out that property. And again, it was renting out for about $3,600 a month in revenue. So it was $900 a unit. So, I'm bringing in between those two properties somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000, a month. And then after you rent it out, you can go to the bank and say, hey, remember that old, shanty house? Well, I fixed it up and I rented it out. This is how much revenue is coming in per month on it. What do you think this house is worth? So like I said, I spent about 180 on it. I put a solid, like probably 30 or 40 grand into it because I had that money from money cash flowing from the first rental property and my job and, other places to put that in there. So I was all in for, let's say like, I don't know, 230, something like that, 220, 230, something like that. And I got it refinanced and they said it was worth $297,000. So immediately, I got almost all my money back out of that property again. And so now I have about $200,000 in cash that I refinanced out to go buy. Now I'm going to go buy a apartment complex, like a 10, 15 unit somewhere in the Midwest or something. Cause there's nothing like kind of what I'm looking for in Orlando. But that's kind of my strategy is trying to find this. It's called BRRRR, right? There's a good book on it. I think David Green wrote it, it's just called Buy, Rehab, Rent, Refinance. And that's one of the places I learned about it. And obviously I did much more research on my own, but basically the idea is that if you run the strategy correctly, you're not ever really putting more money into it. You put in X amount of money and then the property is now worth more than the sum of the parts, if that makes sense. And then you refinance.
Not for you to pull money out of it.
And you get all your money back out and then you go buy another one and you're like, all right, well, you have a loan. I'm like, well, I'm not paying the loan. The tenants are paying off the loan and it's still cash flowing, right? And it's still appreciating and I'm still getting tax advantages and I bought it way under what it was worth, and the leverage on it allows me to go buy another one. So it's like, it's kind of a hack in a way. Obviously can't do that on every property, but that's kind of my basic strategy with real estate. And now I'm kind of taking it to the next level. I'm scaling up into something that is, once you get over 5 units on a single property, it's now considered commercial rules. Jeff probably, talked to you guys about it. But there's a lot of advantages going into that commercial space as what you can do when you refinance and how they calculate the value of the property and stuff like that. So
yeah, it's more run totally as like a business based on the valuation of the asset as opposed to like the residential pieces that go into it. But yeah, let us know if you need a partner on that 15 unit. We're all in.
Our next adventure is definitely going to be a small apartment complex, we think, and we hope. And that's kind of the goal here, but
no. We know.
Okay. And then, but you have a lot going on in your life, right? Like many different buckets. Like how did you manage 2 or more renovations or like big rehabs? It's one of the R's essentially in the BRRRR method. I'm just wondering like how you figured out what material to use. How did you hire the contractor, like just give us like a summary of that on how someone could do that.
Yeah. I mean, so for me, that's another, like, I guess misconception with real estate. Like it depends on the deal. It depends on like kind of the money you have, the money you're going to make, how much the deal is. But that's why, like, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to be a landlord, right? Well, you don't have to be. You can pay a property manager working in your deal. Like, oh, well, I don't know how to fix a stove. I don't know jack shit about. I'm like the least handy. Like sometimes I ask my girl to like hang a picture up on the wall. Kind of kidding. But like for me, I'm not like this super handy. I'm not this Bob the Builder character, right? So I went and found a general contractor in my area, and I kind of use the same strategy to find a property manager, general contractor, accountant, anything, right? First of all, you go to people that are exactly like you, doing exactly what you're doing, and you ask them who they use for these things and who they like. You get referrals. Referrals are undoubtedly the best way to find anything on earth, whatever it is that you might want. And like for me, there's a real estate investing club in my area. It used to meet in person, and it was like hundreds of members, and every probably metro area has one or multiple. And you get to go and you get to meet people in person that are doing exactly what you're doing. And they're also bringing in lenders and appraisers and general contractors and accountants and lawyers and everybody you would need to know, right? So you get to go talk to people and go, who do you use? Why do you use them? Why do you like them? And then you just take that, you go on Google, you look at the reviews, you throw out any that look terrible. And then the last thing you do is you call them, right? And if they don't answer, you leave them a message. If they don't call you back in 24 hours, for me, like 12 hours, then I'm scrapping them. Like I want to be able to get a hold of this person. So there's little things like that where you test out the relationship before you have a relationship, right? You kind of see like, how are they going to act? How are they going to respond? How do they deal with, if they can't even answer their phone, how do you think they're going to deal with a 6-month rehab or whatever? So for me, I found a guy, he was a general contractor. I would pop out there every now and again throughout the process. It was in the middle of COVID, which was a nightmare. Like in March, like right in that first month was like we were supposed to be done that month. And then, the whole city, it's like kind of a smallish town. The whole city's, building department shut down for like three weeks, so it was ridiculous. There was a lot of stuff, but I leaned on him, that's what, dude, like Elon Musk, like, yeah, I heard a quote, I don't know, it was probably a quote of a quote of a quote, like a Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky thing. But somebody was saying that Elon Musk is basically like, look, I'm not building rockets, I just know people that can, right? And I just, right. So it's about like building a business. And the biggest thing that from a book that I've read, which is not one of my favorite books from my list that I wrote down for you guys for later, but it is one that I forgot about, is Who Not How, right? And so it's not how do I do this or how can I do this? It's who can do this for me, right? And how can I make it worth it for them and for me so that I can outsource whatever it is that I'm not good at so that I can still do whatever it is that I want to do. Because if I decided, hey, I've got to do a full renovation, well, I would have failed. If I would have said, hey, I don't know how to do a renovation and I don't want to hire someone because I don't know how to hire someone, well, I would have failed, right? So I had to say like, hey, I'm already deep in this process. Like, I've already made the decision and commitment to do this. So I've got to find who can do this for me and at a price that makes sense. And you don't always got to do the how. Too many people try to do the how. And they try to do everything, especially with everything. You start up a business, you try to create the content and write the captions and build the courses and edit the ebooks and build a YouTube channel. And like some of that stuff's good. You kind of need to know the inner, but like if you have enough money to fix a problem, you don't have a problem, is what I always tell people, so it's trying to find, who you can use to help you. So that's basically what I did with the renovation.
Yeah. I like that a lot. It's Who Not How. And that's actually a good recommendation for a book.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just using your resources around you, right? And once again, that kind of underlying theme that we talked about is like just leaning on people that have done it better, and they'll either take you up, show you how to do it, or do it for you. Right. You mentioned about creating courses, creating content, and like, obviously we're doing the same. You you are as well. You've created a business. I guess you would call it a side hustle, or almost you've built a community up, right, on Instagram and throughout social media. You've amassed a great following, right? And you just provide educational resources for people on real estate, finance, stocks, etc. Can you just explain for our listeners, like, why you started the page Defining Wealth, and like what tools you offer for people to, if they want to check you out?
Yeah. So from the beginning for me, this is around when COVID happened. And so my job is very fast paced. Everyone's in the office, everyone's screaming at each other back and forth in a good way, trying to get deals done and whatnot. So everybody went home, and so it was just me and another guy that stayed in the office. He's like the vice president of the division. I'm like number 2 in the division. So we're like, all right, we're going to stay. But it gave me a lot of time because it wasn't as much hustle and bustle. So I had a lot of time to think. And I went over this thing. It's called the Wheel of Life. It's a journal. You can probably just Google Wheel of Life journal. I would recommend that anybody on earth do this. And you basically rate yourself in like 8 to 10 different areas. It's like finance, your career, your relationship, your friends, your family. And you basically rate yourself 1 to 10. And you go, all right, this is a 7. What can I do to make this a 9? Right. And then you try to make action steps, and then you try to make it a 9, and you see where you're at next week. For me, the one thing that kept coming up over and over again, where I was like, that's like a 2, or a 1, was contribution. And so for me, the biggest thing in my life, like I was saying, go back to sports, the fraternity, I was always contributing. I was always in a leadership role. I was always helping people. I was always coaching people. I was always teaching people. And while I was kind of doing that in my work, I didn't really feel like I was doing it to my fullest potential or extent. And so I wanted to contribute. So I started this account, and the idea, obviously it's called Defining Wealth, and it's not called the definition of wealth, because if it was a definition of wealth, it would be me going, hey, this is what I did. This is what you should do. This is the definition of wealth. If you don't like it, then hit the road. It's called Defining Wealth. It's a verb, right? We're in action. I'm showing you, hey, there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot, there's millions of options. Like, if you don't think that you can make money or be a millionaire, you just haven't been exposed to all that's out there and available for you. So let's get together and let's define what is your definition of wealth, right? And how do we get you there as soon as possible, right? So a lot of it's using financial type things, right? Like stocks, real estate, personal finance, to help people get there. Because what I believe is that most people, they want to be financially free, right? They want their time back. They want to be able to spend time with their family. A lot of those are going to be, the cornerstones of stuff. But, that's why I also talk about success and motivation and discipline and faith and belief and meditation and exercising and all this other stuff. Because like you were saying before, I think you alluded to, like, there's some people that kind of do everything, right? And it's like, well, how are so many people doing nothing and some people are doing everything? It's because it's just like, the thing that people don't want to hear from me is like the belief and the commit and the creating habits and all that stuff. But that's where the real success lies, because you take that framework and you put it in finance or stocks or real estate or your job or your relationships or whatever, and you're going to be successful in everything, right? That's the cornerstone. That's the framework, those principles and those values. So that's a lot of what I teach too. But obviously I like to give people, the hard, hey, this is how you, get your finances in order. This is how you, invest in the stock market. This is how you invest in real estate as well. But, for me, like I said, I like to give people that education, but also like to teach them, that it's important to apply it. And then also the biggest thing is to inspire them to truly take action and not just, over consume material and not actually, take those steps towards their own definition of wealth.
Very cool. I have one more for you, and then we'll transition to sort of the ending of the show. But you've basically done a lot of like your coaching now, right? You're educating others, but how do you continuously educate yourself and like stay up with the up and up? And like, you're obviously elevating yourself every day. And then now you're pulling on a train of, let's just say 16,000 plus people. And I'm wondering how you hold yourself accountable, what you do on a daily basis to maybe talk about the books again, the courses, et cetera, like what you're doing behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's creating habits, and like, so for me, like I said, some of these hacks, like, as far as time hacks, like I know the things that I need to get done every single day, and I do them before I do anything else. Right. And the main three are some sort of spiritual practice, meditation practice, some sort of physical practice, and then some sort of mental practice, right? So mental's learning, reading, whatever. Spiritual, meditation, visualization, something like that. Physical, obviously, sauna, workout, run, something like that. So for me, typically what I do in the morning is I work out and I listen to an audiobook on 2x speed at the same time, right? So I can knock out
two birds, one stone. There you go.
Right. Yeah. And then typically every single morning I spend, which I don't know, some people don't understand this, but I think this is probably one of the biggest things is every 10 to 15, for 10 to 15 minutes every morning, I do a breathing exercise. It's the Wim Hof method, if you're familiar with it. And then, after that, I spend another 5 to 10 minutes basically stretching what I believe is possible. This is the best way that I can explain it to people. And I think about, what I'm able to accomplish, what I thought I could accomplish yesterday and what's changed since then. And where do I think I can get myself? Because with my account, when I started, maybe I'll get to 1,000 in a year, and then I hit 1,000, dang, I thought that was cool. Maybe 5,000, maybe 10,000, so it's you got to constantly stretch what you believe is possible because you're only going to go as high as you believe that you can go. So for me, as far as educating myself, for a good example is I created a real estate course. In my opinion, and maybe I am a little bit biased, but I think it's the best real estate course out there. Am I the most accomplished real estate person on earth? Obviously not, right? But books they can't teach you what my course teaches you because it's literally me on my computer going through all the questions you asked earlier. I can answer them, but it's a little bit tough here. On the course, I literally share my screen and go, this is the website. There's another website. There's another website. This is me finding a deal in this random market right now, running all the numbers, showing you exactly what you need to do, right? And how did I do that? Well, I bought 10 other courses on real estate. But did I need to know about real estate? No. But I wanted to see how they were setting up their information and what they were missing because and how the flow was. So for me, I've spent, hundreds of dollars, maybe more than that, because I wanted to make the best course I possibly could and not just rely solely based on my knowledge, right? So I spent the money, I took all those courses and, in my opinion, there was so much incredibly lacking from all these courses. A lot of them are 30-minute PowerPoint slides, which is cool. It depends on what you're charging people. It depends on how much value you're getting out of it. But for me, I was dude, I want to make, a lot of people hey, you can't make a great course because no one's, people don't read the books or do the courses anyways. I'm well, I have to make the course as if somebody is going to take this with every single grain within this course and use it to its fullest extent. I'm making my course for that person. Because if that person gets this course and they take advantage of it and they take action on everything within it, then they're going to change their life. And that's the person that I'm trying to get to. So for me, in asking yourself or ask the question about education, it's every single day. So for me, I couldn't read anymore, right? I couldn't read physically anymore because it didn't really fit into my schedule. So I still commute to work. That's probably a 30 minutes home, listen to it on two times speed. That's 2 hours, work out in the morning, right? Have my AirPods in while I work out. That's another 20, 30 minutes, right? So over the course of the week, I listen in 12 hours and I'm watching YouTube videos. I'm studying other Instagram accounts. It's just a way of life. It's just, watching YouTube, taking courses, reading books, listening to audiobooks. And like I said, that is one of the most important things that I've ever done is just, you get to pick what you want to be good at in life, but it's going to come down to what do you want to do consistently every single day? If you work out every single day consistently, I almost guarantee you that you are going to be in incredible shape. There's a very, very small chance that if you diet and exercise every single day, that you are not going to be in incredible shape. And
what you're saying is it applies to anything that you do consistently over time.
If you listen to finance, or anything, right? If you educate yourself and read books every single day, you are smart. There is almost a 0% chance that you do not, become smart in whatever it is. So figure out what's important to you. And for a lot of people, I compare it to diet and exercise because I go diet and exercise. A lot of people are, they don't choose to make it important. Finance and diet and exercise. Diet and exercise is easy because it's science, right? So if I say, hey, well, I don't really think it's important, diet and exercise and, whatever, it's not going to affect me. It's going to affect me. It's science. Like I don't get to choose. My ignorance doesn't, afford me any sort of like leeway from science. I'm going to get out of shape. I'm going to be unhealthy. I'm going to potentially live a worse life from a health perspective. Same thing with finance. People go, I'm not a math person. My husband or my wife are the ones that handle the finances. Well, it's like and I don't want to say ignorance because I want to come from a positive area, but the ignorance of that thinking finance is not important, that it's not going to affect you if you ignore it is only going to hurt you worse. Right. So you have to make the decision that it's important, and you have to make that decision to consistently every single day get some sort of knowledge or education, where it's following accounts, watching YouTube, buying courses, whatever. There's infinite information out there, especially in today's world.
I totally agree with you in terms of the finance perspective, and like the people that say like, I'm not a money person or somebody else handles it. It's like, well, you're in a world that is ruled by money. So you don't have to love it. You don't have to make it your everything, but you do have to understand it, in my opinion. And that's if you understand how the game is played, well, that's the first step to winning. Right. So great, man. That was really informational. Appreciate you sharing your kind of your story about what you do on a daily basis, because it really helps put it in perspective how important those things are. The second to last segment of our show is called the Core Four. So get to know you a little bit more personally. Although I feel like we have been a lot of this, which has been good. First question is, what's your favorite investing, business, or real estate book?
So I read your email before. I prepared for this interview. So I actually have 4 for you guys, because I want to go from some different areas and give you some books that a lot of people probably haven't heard of. Awesome. So the first one is motivation, right? The motivation category. It's a book called Relentless. It's from the guy who was Michael Jordan, Dwayne Wade's coach, right? Like his workout coach. And it looked at, well, if you ever familiar with like David Goggins, like it's similar to that. It's like, if you want to run through a brick wall tomorrow, like read this book, like it's going to get you going. It's going to, especially for sales, or anything. I mean, it's more so about confidence, really. But just read the book. It's awesome. Money. Obviously I could do Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or Psychology of Money, or, all the normal books. There is a book called How to Get Rich, which is pretty, point blank. It's by a guy named Felix Dennis. And it's more so about how to get like really rich, like tens of millions, hundreds of millions, of dollars rich. And so it kind of opened my mind up to kind of that next level, which not everybody has, the want to get to that level, and you definitely don't need to. But it is something that I'm interested in, because my thought is that the more impact I have, the more people that I help, the more value that I bring, the more money that I'm going to make. So it's the same thing. So for him, it's going into, as far as starting businesses, getting equity. It's a really cool book. Psychology is, if you're ever familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza, he's somebody that I get a lot of my mindset and psychology work, spiritual stuff. Like I was talking about visualization and whatnot. It's a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it's exactly that. It's kind of unlearning, who we've become subconsciously, whether we realize it or not. And, allowing ourselves to, focus on who we want to be, and, allowing that to kind of change our life and set our path from there. And the last one is Goals. 10X by Grant Cardone, which I think is an awesome book. Like I'm sure you guys might have read it, especially being in sales and stuff. I
haven't read it, but a lot of people recommend it.
It's just an idea, literally. The whole book is essentially like whatever you think is your goal, like 10 times it. And that's another thing what I was talking about earlier, where it's just stretch the idea of what you believe to be possible, because whatever you believe to be possible is now going to become your ceiling. If somebody asks you, hey, what's most amount of money that you would ever want to be able to make, you would never say like 100 grand, like you would say like the max, like, cause you want that to be your ceiling, but that's what you're doing every single day, regardless of whether or not you like see it going on subconsciously.
Consciously. Yeah.
Well, this guy made this, or this person made this. So that must be like, my ceiling. Right. But it's like your ceiling is only what you believe the extent of your, of your possibilities or your, to be basically. So those would be my 4.
Love that.
Yep.
Cool. Second question in the core 4 is, what's been your biggest mistake along your investing journey and what have you learned from it?
I mean, I don't know if this is the fun answer, but I genuinely believe that like there are no such thing as mistakes. Really, it's all like what you decide to do with it after that determines whether or not it's a mistake. If you do something, you mess up, you screw up, and you quit, now you just made a mistake. So for me, do I celebrate losing? Absolutely not. But the most powerful moments in our lives are the time where when we win, we go and we celebrate. We don't go, how could we have done better? Like when we lose, we're forced to stare at ourselves and see what happened and figure it out. So as far as mistakes, I don't know. I've made a million, I've literally made a million, and it's funny, like over time, like the things I used to thought were risks or mistakes, I don't even like consider to be risks or mistakes anymore, and that's just, you get in the habit of not judging yourself and just saying, hey, I know that I have to fail to get to where I'm going. And that there's a quote that's like, the ladder of success, you climb the rungs of opportunity or something like that. But I think you climb the rungs of failure. Like each failure is a rung on the ladder, and it allows you to take one more step up. So
the best part about that, Tyler, is that your failures become their past failures. I think you alluded to this, become things that you don't even fear anymore. You're like, oh, I was scared of that. Like even me 6 months ago, I was like, there's certain things about the rental investment game that I was like, this is scary. And then it happens and you're like, no, it's actually not that bad. Like it's totally fine. Like I got through it.
You get through
very,
it.
very, very cool.
Yeah.
So let's see
Number
here.
3.
Yeah. Number 3. Who is your who for 2021? And by meeting this person, you feel your life and business will be propelled to the next level. And if you don't have somebody that you're looking to meet, maybe somebody that you have met that's helped you along the way to get to where you are.
Yeah. And I guess I'll go with a group of people. And I think it's just the community on Instagram that I didn't realize existed before all this. Like I started this account back 7-8 months ago. I had 50 followers, 100 followers, 150 followers, 200 followers, for months, I was posting and I'm like, is anybody listening? But you just like, and I'm like, you don't see the path. Life is like a river bend, like you don't see where you're going until you get to that next checkpoint. And then you're like, all right, this is the next. And the greatest thing along the way that I didn't understand from the beginning is the relationships and the people that I've met, like I said, I met Travis, who's been a big impact on my life and has stretched the way that I think. And, we work together and talk a lot. Everybody on Instagram in the personal finance community, real estate community, it's just fine. I thought I was, and maybe I am still weird, but I thought I was like, I'm like, dude, there's not a lot of people that are really like me, that they're out there like in my real life world. Like the longer, like you were saying at the beginning, your friends go like this but then it's just one step a day. And I still have a lot of friends. I still love my friends and I still do the things that we did. But I notice more and more as time goes by that the conversation, I'm getting like a little bit like further away, not like, oh, I'm way cooler than they are. We're just focusing on different things.
Yep, absolutely.
Like some people are focusing on video games and Netflix and this and that and whatever. That's cool. Like do your own thing. Don't care. I don't judge anyone, but it's just, you kind of slide away. So to go into this world that I didn't know existed, where everyone's talking about the same thing, doing the same thing, it has just been such a blessing to me.
Love it. I think that's a great answer. I don't know if we've had anybody say that. So
yeah, I feel like that all the time.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Thanks for bringing that one up, because I'm sure a lot of listeners are feeling the same way too, especially entrepreneurs. You're just like, you grow apart.
It's lonely too. It's lonely. Like everything you do if you get in like the category of Millionaire 27 or just having a high paying job, or you're not the one that's going out every night, or you're an RA instead of getting an apartment, like you're distancing yourself, and it can get lonely. Like, how many of my friends, like real life friends, run a social media account? Zero. It's zero. And it's such a big part of my life now that people don't, it's hard for me to, you need to talk to people and you need to get out what is going on in your life and you need to converse and work with people. And, just from a stress point and then also just from a growth point. Just
totally.
I couldn't agree more. I love, it's true. I think we've talked about it a bunch of times here, but like you get around a like-minded person, you can't talk to some of your friends about certain things that are going on, right? Whether it's real estate, Instagram account, job, et cetera. Like you're just like maybe taking another rung up. There's nothing wrong with it, but it is like a de-stressor to talk to, like even talking to you tonight, right? Like we just like hit on 5 things that we're like, dude, we're so similar. Like this is amazing. Like I'm around someone that gets me, right? And that in that way. And like, I just think a specific example is like the Instagram account thing. Like people will be like, dude, why are you on your phone all the time? I'm like, you don't understand. This is like a future business. Like I'm building it to be obviously a community of people that are going to like help each other grow. But at the end of the day, like it's a revenue stream too, which is so cool, but no one gets, you're at like a family party, like why are you on your phone? And you get like all these notifications. It's like, I'm not trying to be like, you set it down. Right. And it is hard to find that balance, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you're never getting a break. There's like, you're working 12 hours a day, no matter what, anytime. Like I just think about it from the moment I open my eyes to the minute I close my eyes, I'm doing something to try to drive myself in my business.
It's not like that forever. I think that's the best part about entrepreneurship is that it doesn't have to be like that forever if you really, really stick it out for those first 10, 12 years. So, and everyone's path's different,
but we're in that phase and it's hard.
We're in the grind
and like,
phase.
It's just cool to talk to Tyler too, because you're clearly in that phase too. Right. And it's like, I get the lonely part and like, they're just like kind of going through and you're like, wow, it's so good to talk to someone. So
I think the coolest part too about like social media is like I've had, a few people. I remember one guy reaching out to me and he was, your environment, like up until like the internet and really up until a few years ago, like your environment was whatever your physical environment was. Like you didn't really get a choice. Like if you lived in a really bad area and people weren't doing much, or, you didn't live in a good home or you didn't live in a good neighborhood, whatever, that was your only environment. But now you are able to literally create your own environment through the internet and have any group of people on earth and have access to anyone. One guy was like, hey man, like I just, your page has like basically given me like a new life. I didn't realize that, there was like people out there that were like talking like this and learning about this and like where I come, like no one's trying to do anything. And like, I live in like a really bad area and like I'm trying to just get out and make it, and like seeing what you're talking about and all the people. And I've met people that have commented on your posts and started talking with them. And now I have a new environment. I have a new group of friends. I have a new outlook on life because of what you created on the internet. So that's probably one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
And tell me that didn't help you get up for the next 5 weeks and do exactly what you're doing just to hear somebody, I don't
even know when that was. That was probably one of the first, that was before I even hit 1,000 followers probably, you know?
It's awesome. The 4th question of the core 4.
My turn.
Yes, sir.
Tyler, what do you want your legacy to be?
So like I said before and kind of alluded to is I think the biggest problem, whether it be finance or life or success or whatever, is that people don't believe enough in themselves. Like that is like by far and large, like I can tell people how to invest in the stock market. I can run their portfolio. I can buy rental properties for them. It's not going to matter because if they don't believe in themselves and they don't understand what their capabilities are, then it's not going to matter. So for me, the biggest thing that I can do is I want to give people the information and the inspiration that they need to go out and change their life, become financially free. So that's what I want and the last thing, I guess, what my legacy to be is, I want people to, because people don't give a shit, honestly, what you did or how much money you made. The only thing they care about at the end of the day is how you made them feel. Like genuinely, that's it. So like, I want to be the guy, and I wrote this down like a year or two ago, and I used to read it every day. And now it's kind of one of the things that I visualize in the morning sometimes is like, I write down what, and this might be morbid, but like if there was my girlfriend, which is now my fiance, or my mom or somebody, let's say I were to pass, whether it be now or when I'm 90, whatever, what do I want them to get up and say about me? In that moment, they survived me and they say, Tyler was a blank, right? Tyler was an outstanding father. He's an outstanding he would give his shirt off his back. He was always giving. He provided value. He loved people. Everyone loved him. You never met anyone that, felt like they didn't get as much out of him as they gave him, so it's like trying to find how you want to be, how you want to identify and how you want to, be seen. And then trying to live your life. You're basically reverse engineering your life from that. Right. So if I decide that I want to be, humble and honorable and smart and intelligent and wealthy and confident and successful and whatever it might be. Well, I get to do that. All those are choices, so if I want to be seen as somebody who is that, then I have to believe that I already am that, so that I act like that. So then I get the things that those people get. And then it starts another loop where now I become those things even more than I already was. But too many people think that they think that they're not a healthy person. They think that they just like work out, get on a diet, and then they become healthy, and then then they get a good body, and then they get healthy. But reality, if you don't a healthy person that makes healthy decisions from the jump, then you're not going to do the things you need to do to have the things that you want to have. So it's be, do, have, right? Not do, have, be. So that's
exactly. You have to identify as that particular individual and see yourself as that person before you actually get there. I think it's incredible. So the last segment of our show is called The Last Drop. And what we want to find out here is, if you could go back in time, Tyler, what advice would you give your younger self?
I mean, it might be kind of in line with some of the other things that I said before, but I it's like the idea of ready, fire, aim. It's ready is education, right? But too many people ready, aim, and then
never fire.
Never fire. And so it's the thing that I've learned over time, right? And I can't be mad because you can't know everything from the jump, but is take more risk, right? And risk is kind of up to you. But if you want to go after something, you literally have one life. Like, you've got one shot. We're all going to die. Everyone hates to hear it, but like, that's like, when you live with that and you understand that, then all this other stuff that you think is risky doesn't really make much sense. So I think in the beginning, I used to worry a lot. I used to say, I can't do this, or, that person, well, they only did that because they've got this, privilege, or this, or, they came from this family or whatever. It's like, once you throw away all that stuff and all the excuses, and you believe in yourself and you commit, and you create the habits that are going to build and sustain the lifestyle that you want. That's probably what I would go back and tell myself, earlier. And the biggest thing is, don't get lost in the destination, I guess. And it's really, life is all about people. At the end of the day, like, finance is cool, stocks is cool, real estate is cool. But it's all about the people. It's about our moms. It's about our dads. It's about our sisters, brothers, fiancés, friends, the people in our lives. Everything that we do, at the end of the day, if you go, why, and you try to get down to like an answer where there is no more why, it's because of a feeling or a person, right? It's like, well, like, I want to invest in real estate. Why? Well, I want to be financially free. Why? Well, I want to spend more time with my family. Why? Because that's the most important thing in the world to me, so, but the thing that people don't realize is that you can try to go after real estate, become financially free. And I believe that you should, but you don't have to be financially free to set those people as the most important priority in your life.
Well, that you reminded me of a quote that we put on it was in college we ended up winning Greek Olympics this year, and for that year, and we had a banner, right? And we had to put our like name, and we had a quote, and it is exactly what you said. It goes, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others." And it's like identical to what you just said. And it's like, life's about relationships and like the impact you have on people's lives. And like, you even talked about the benefit of relationships throughout the episode, and like how you lean on certain people, they'll bring you up to their level. But it even comes down to like, you're this huge successful guy, right? But like, you have days where you just want to talk to a friend that is in a similar boat to you, or like is doing something like you, and like, we're all human, right? So it goes down to people. And I think that's a cool topic. We could go down a long rabbit hole there. So I don't want to do that right now, because we've already taken too much of your time up anyways. But overall, we just want to say, like, we truly appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a blast. I'm sure a lot of people listening just want to get to know you a little bit more, network, figure out like how they can learn from you and lean on you. So for those people, where can they find you and what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah. So the biggest place, I guess, where I'm at is on Instagram. So it's at defining.wealth. So you can find me on there. I teach basically like throughout my posts, every week and all that stuff, pretty much every day. I have a lot of free tools and stuff for people, free budget, net worth, financial plan tracker. I have a free 2-hour, honestly, it's better and longer than a lot of courses out there that I give away for free. The link in my bio, it's basically a personal finance course. And then I do have a paid real estate course where I take you through everything that I did. And then also it's not just about me, the genuinely, the whole idea of it is how can, regardless of where you are, how much money you have, what market you're in, all that stuff, how can you find I go 5 different strategies in real estate and help you build your strategy. And then also, literally take you A to Z step by step, on how to do that. I'm also on Twitter, which I've recently got more into. So if you're on Twitter, you can find me there. I'm trying to figure out TikTok, but I don't know if it's for me, but
turns out you have to be 18 to figure it out. So we don't know. We're lost still.
One video that they got 500 and something thousand views, and I got 4,000 followers, and I haven't done anything since. So
that's cool.
So we'll
on TikTok.
Maybe there's a market there. I don't know.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Obviously, we're going to continue to stay in touch, and it's just been cool to follow your journey so far. And we appreciate all the knowledge you dropped on our listeners and us tonight. It was great.
Okay. Awesome, guys. And my direct messages, DMs on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, always open. If anybody ever has any questions or whatever, very, friendly, open guy, I'll shoot you straight or, help you out with whatever's going on if I can, or direct you to someone that, can if I can't. So I hope everybody got a lot of value out of it.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler.